So as my colleague said, my name's Sunil. I'm a DevOps consultant here, and you can see my details here if you want to connect with me. So first things first, I think if those that have just joined, if you can join the wireless and make your way to the GitHub page. So what I've done with the labs is I've put most of the information in the GitHub page. But what I need to do is get people to connect to the GitHub page. So I'll just show you where it is. All right. So let's go back to this page now. So what we need to do is we need to log into the AWS console. So if you can see where my mouse is, if you could open that in a separate tab. And here we need to call it PG. I can't remember it myself. PG19 meter. And then we need this password here. So I'm just going to copy it.
Is that 0?
Yeah, it's a 0. So it's HE110 capital A N. Is that better?
Yeah.
So that's capital H, lowercase e, 110, capital A, N, capital D, W, 311, and then a C, lowercase, 0, and lowercase me. So I'm just going to go back because I need to log in myself. So once you log in, this particular user actually has no rights. So you need to assume the role. And for that, you need to go back to the GitHub page and then open another tab once you've logged in. And that tab will automatically assume the role. You can choose your own color. I'm choosing green. The CloudFormation. I'm going to switch to this role. So when everyone's done that, let me know. I'll quickly switch back to this so people can look at the password.
Sorry, what select is?
So once you've logged in using the AWS console, this one, you just need to click, because you will log into the console, but that particular user has no rights. It can't do anything other than log in. So then you need to switch to a role. You have to assume a role in AWS. I'll explain why, the importance of that in a little while. But what I've done is I created a link. So if you click on this switch role, so I just press command on my laptop and then clicked on this, and it opens another tab and it automatically assumes the role for you. Whoopsie daisy. And so you just log in. So I'm already logged in, so I don't need that.
Sorry, can you put the password up one more time?
Yep, sure. So once everyone's logged in, just give me some sort of a nod.
Should I use a different display name here?
No, so that link does everything for you. You just need to choose a color and then say yes.
What region are we working in?
So we're actually working in US North Virginia region. US 1. So everyone should be on that region. Is everyone relatively up to following up? What about you guys at the back? You good?
Yeah.
I can see him. He's still doing it, so we'll wait. So at the back, are we any good? Is he still doing it? Right, give me a thumbs up when you're all ready over there. We good? All right, so now we're logged in. We'll just talk about the agenda. So first, the agenda is going to be, first we're going to talk about Introduction to CloudFormation, do a little theory, and then we're going to talk about the lab sessions, and then what's coming up next in CloudFormation, and then we'll have a short QA if there's time, and pizza. Well, there's always going to be time for pizza, but... Right, so we've actually got 3 labs. They're very simple labs, but what I was trying to do in these labs was teach how to provision. So the idea is that you'll take away these templates and redo this whole process again with the GitHub page. And so the first lab is just to show you how to create a simple stack with an S3 bucket and using some parameters on the console. We're going to do all the labs are going to be done on the AWS console. But the actual GitHub page also has the instructions to do it using the command line. So if you do go to do it again at home or back at your offices, I'd encourage you to do it using the command line afterwards. The next lab that we're going to be doing will be to do update security groups and update rules, because the idea being that if you provision servers, you're going to want to play with security group rules. And the last lab is actually provisioning an EC2 instance using user data. All right, so first thing, what is CloudFormation? So CloudFormation is Amazon's answer to infrastructure as code. It's basically what we mean by that is scripting our infrastructure into a file. It allows us to model and set up resources in Amazon. All scripted in a file. The reason why we want this is because you can have the benefits of that source control management gives you. You can version your infrastructure, and then someone else can relaunch it and repeat the processes that you've done. And with the benefits of scripting is that you also have the ability to add a pipeline, continuous integration pipeline. So, if you remember, just before I started speaking, I asked you all to log into the Amazon console, and I said that the user you're logging in has no rights whatsoever. The reason why that was actually quite important is because in CloudFormation, whoever's provisioning the CloudFormation template, it actually gets provisioned with whatever rights that user's logged into as. So what Amazon has done is they've created what they call an IMA service role. And so that's what you was doing in that process of assuming the role. You was actually assuming a role specifically for provisioning resources. And now I have actually limited what that particular service role can do, but it's limited just to what we do here, just in case someone tries to be a bit little naughty. So there's 2 ways of running templates. There's the console, which is what we're going to be using for the labs, and there's the CLI, which I also have those instructions as I mentioned earlier. So let's going to quickly talk about the actual template format. So the CloudFormation templates are actually written well, they started writing in JSON, and then they upgraded them to be able to express them in using YAML. The template, CloudFormation actually is a declarative language, so you just describe what you want to use as the ideal resource, what you want, and then CloudFormation will go off and provision it. So it's not like a programming language where you've got a set of instructions that needs to run. You just tell it what you want and how the ideal way you want it, and then CloudFormation will go off and do it. Out of this template, the only section that you need as a requirement for a template to be valid is the resources section. So if you have nothing else and just resources, and then you've written it correctly, syntactically correctly, then it's a valid CloudFormation template. The other thing that I'm going to mention is, because realistically everyone's going to want some sort of description, because if you have loads of templates, So in order to have the description tag, it has to come directly after the version. Right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the language of CloudFormation here. So we have something called resource attributes, and what this allows us to do is allows us to give additional control, and you'll see this in the lab. With what it allows us to do is add additional attributes to Amazon resources, and this is useful for when you like provision an S3 bucket and you want to have a deletion policy. So if you delete the stack, it doesn't actually delete the S3 bucket. For our purposes, the deletion policy is to actually delete the bucket because I need to clean up after we've done the labs. There's also a notion of what they call intrinsic functions, and these are just built-in functions for manipulating the template itself within the template. And you'll be able to see in the template that we use certain functions like string substitution and ref to reference parameters. It also has another notion of I can't even say it, intrinsic conditional functions, which is basically your average Boolean logics. So like and, equals, that's meant to say if, it says it ID, not and or. And there's also a notion of what they call pseudo parameters. Now what this is these are parameters that you don't have to declare, but you can use. So stuff like your account ID, you don't have to say account ID equals whatever account number you've got. The actual template that the CloudFormation environment is running in will automatically know which account ID it is, and there's a bunch of them. So I haven't listed them all, obviously, for good reason. And there's the notion of helper scripts, which are Python scripts that help you install applications and start services. We'll be using some of that in the last lab to provision an EC2 instance. So as I mentioned before, intrinsic functions. So I've listed, bolded some of them. This is just a list of them. I know that we're going to be using base 64 for the last lab and finding a map. So in the template that we had earlier, we had something notion of mappings. And what this lets you do is it lets you map different variables, and that function finding map helps you pull values from that mapping section. So I have a quick snippet here. I don't know if everyone at the back can see this, but as I mentioned earlier, there's intrinsic functions like ref. So what it's doing here, I'll show you here, is, where is it? Ref. So this is saying take the parameter S3 bucket name, which I've declared here with a default string, and reference it here. And here we have a definition of how to use a Boolean function. So here we're using intrinsic conditional functions, and it's referencing this variable. So you're saying if version enabling this variable is checked to true, then we want to enable this function, enable versioning. So we should have it here somewhere. Where else have we got? So there's more to this actual template. I only put a snippet in, and this is basically your string substitution. So we're putting the bucket name here for the ARN resource. Right, so let's start the labs. Everyone's logged in now. So let's get out of this, go here. So the first thing we need to do is actually clone the repo. So if we go to a web browser now, I've cloned mine. Just make sure it's... So the first lab is this one, and we've got, the way I've done it, the way I've done the labs. One more thing before we talk about labs. I've actually put in the GitHub, I've tried to put information so people can use to reference and then redo the labs, and I've mentioned the template format in here. It's a bit more in more detail than what I've discussed here. So what the different settings are. So in lab 1, what we're going to be doing is taking a template and asking CloudFormation to get S3 to provision a bucket for us. Nothing more complicated than that. I've put the steps in here so people can just read that and do it. And later on, if you want, you can use the AWS command line to do the same thing. So I've put the necessary instructions in here for doing that as well. So the way I've designed the labs is we're going to have a set of goals that we're going to try and achieve in each lab. And this one has two goals. One is to provision an S3 bucket, and then we're going to use change sets to do an update. I'll explain a bit more when we get to the second goal. So for now, if we just go to make our way to CloudFormation. And we do create stack. Then we click on browse. So let me go back, let me just make sure I'm in the right folder. So we click the first one. It should say lab 001 G1 for goal 1. Is everyone following so far? Good. Over here, everyone all right at the back? You good?
Good now.
So I might go fast. Just tell me to slow down if I'm going too fast. Sorry. All right. So I'll go back again. So you go to services, and under you can actually type it here, CloudFormation. It will show up here. And then you get to here. Right? Once you've got to this page, you click on Create Stack. You got here? And then I'm just going to upload my template. Oh, is everyone clear on this bit? You guys? Alright, so I'm going to click next then. So it will validate when it goes next, and obviously the validation was good. And so there's two things I want to mention here now. Here we have a set of parameters. One thing that everyone needs to do here is you need to call the stack name a particular thing. You have to call it lab 001 dash and then your first name. The reason why is because everyone's provisioning a stack, and then when it goes up in a list, you're not going to find it, what you called it. So it's just for clarity for everyone, because you're going to reference some of your previous labs. So here, the same thing. I'm just going to leave the default bucket name, pg19 dot, and then my name. If you've got a very common name, please use your first name and surname. All right, so we're going to move forward. So I'm going to click next. And here, if you notice, it says I am on role. I'm going to choose the role. And you'll see this warning, and it's perfectly fine. Because we're using the service role. So if everyone does that, and what we're going to do is we're just going to click next all the way through. Then here we can review it. But we're just going to say create.
How did you fix the permission holder?
The what? So a lot of people are getting stuck on switching the role. So I'm just going to quickly reiterate that again. So once you've logged into the console, you need to click on this switch role link here. So just hold your command or control, depending on if you've got Windows or Mac, and choose a color. So when you choose a color, it will show up in the tab like this here, if you can see. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to provision anything because you don't have permissions. I purposely did that, so make sure everyone assumes the role. So my template, my bucket's been provisioned at the moment. So mine's created. Some people have, for lack of a better way, cocked up. So let's just take a look at dead puppy, find out what's happened here. All right, so that's another thing. So the template, S3 bucket names all have to be all lowercase. So because this person wrote dead puppy with a capital P, it didn't work. So the best thing to do is delete this one and redo it again. So shall I delete it for them? Well, whoever is dead puppy, just
He's really dead.
pretty much.
It's already dead.
So just delete the thing or choose a different name. But stick with the name, whatever name you choose. I suspect what happened to Joel, this one's interesting. So this one had an uppercase character in the bucket name. So this person, Joey, chose to write his name in lowercase on the actual stack name, but the bucket name he used a capital character. So it's pretty much the same problem for everyone. Whoever's used, you need to keep consistency, so just use lowercase from now on. Because that's an S3 limitation.
There is the first one, large, but there are capital letters, but
that's the stack name. So this person was meant to use lab 001, but it's fine. It's not going to cause a problem, but it just means that in previous labs, his name's going to be all over the place if you don't stick with the name format. Because the reason why I've said this is because when you have lab 002 and then your surname, or your first name, whatever name you have, you can see all the labs together, and we'll be doing other operations on these. So when we do the security groups, we're going to be doing we're going to provision 2 stacks for that, and then we're going to use those stacks in the EC2 instance. Alright, so I suspect this one's the same thing as well. If we click on it, look at the type, uppercase, so the bucket name they chose was uppercase. That's why. Alright, so I'm going to give you a few more minutes and then we'll move on to the next goal.
If I like to modify something, for example, it's not in this case because it's very simple, but during the development process, I try something, it's working, not working, next phase, how can I modify slightly with the and rerun the... So
we're going to go through that, but basically what you're talking about is updating the stack, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go through that. So we're going through the various workflows. In this one, what we're going to do, next lab, what we're going to do is we're going to cover chain sets where you get to update the stack, but you get to preview your changes so you can approve them or reject them. So when everyone's ready, roughly, if everyone's caught up, we can move on.
What did you do to the lab 001?
So for the first one, I'll just quickly redo it. Yeah. So once have you assumed a role? So you've got a colored band. You chose a color. All right, that's good. So what you do is you do create stack. Have you cloned the repository?
No, we haven't cloned it.
All right, so clone the repository or download it. Either one will do. Let me know when you've got there. Create a change set name. You doing the first lab or second? So you did something wrong. So you do create stack.
Yeah.
Upload your file. This is it, right? Yeah, it is. Looks familiar. And just do next. Here, keep everything lowercase.
I chose the wrong. Yeah.
Sorry. So I'll leave it to you. But keep the same name all the way through, so you're all right. So are you guys caught up? Do you want me to come over?
Right, so just basically have one of the 2 files in the one.
So have you cloned the repository? Right, so this is what you do. Just follow me. I'm going to redo the first lab quickly. Yeah, so you do create stack. You go to CloudFormation, create stack, and then you upload the first lab, and then you click next. And here you type in a lab 001 hyphen, and you give it all lowercase. I'm going to call it Bob Smith. There can't be a Bob Smith here, right? Please tell me there's no Bob Smith here.
That's it.
And again, this is the bucket name, so you do it lowercase. Then you just do next, and then you choose the role, the service role. This is fine, this the yellow band, and just click next and create. So someone's jumped ahead here, updating progress. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So now the next one we're going to do is we're going to have to find our stack, because the next one we're doing now is this goal. Actually, no. Let's actually quickly look at the code. So there's a couple of things I want to mention here. This is the file. Now in the actual CloudFormation template, what we had is here we've got something called metadata. Let me just enlarge that so people can actually see it. And here we have this tag called CloudFormation interface, and what this does is actually lets us have friendly labels on the console. And so what you would have seen if I didn't have this would have been this PS3 bucket name, but instead what you saw was this label here, bucket name, and that's what this metadata allows you to do. The other thing was that you also saw when you went through the console this default string that came up. So that's what this is. That's what this defines. And the actual resource that we're provisioning is an S3 bucket. And I remember I said to you about the earlier before, we have a deletion policy here. And so if I had a deletion policy of retain, then even if I deleted my stack, the S3 bucket would have remained and whatever's in there. Now I've purposely chosen to delete it because I'm going to have to clean up after you guys, and it's easier for me just to delete everything. And also we have something called outputs. So what we can do with outputs is, if we go back here, I'll find my, see if we can do that. Oh, it's a bit crap. All right. So if I click on this, whoops, let's go back one. If you go here, you will see the output, and it shows you the bucket name and the value. So you can actually output stuff for auditing purposes of what you've done with your thing. And this you'll find is quite useful when you provision an EC2 instance, because you'll want the public DNS, the public IP, maybe what the name of the actual EC2 key that you've used. So we'll discover that. So right now we're going to move on to the next lab. So let's just get rid of that. So the next lab we're going to do is we're going to cover something called chain sets. And what chain sets lets you do is it lets you update a CloudFormation stack, but it lets you it gives you an opportunity to preview what you're going to update and decide if you want to go ahead with it or reject it. And so we've got the instructions here, but I'm going to just tell you what to do. So you've got a choice. So first of all, I need to find my stack. So I suggest you guys do the same, find your stack. So this is my stack, it's already highlighted. Is that good? All right, so then we go to actions, and whoopsie daisy. Okay, so create change set for current stack. If we click on that, let's go out. And we're literally going to do the same thing that we did earlier. Now we're just going to click on our browse, and we're going to do goal 2.
This one has create change set.
Yep. So under action. So I'll go back.
Yeah,
You got it? Has everyone got it? No? What are you missing?
So I go to CloudFormation and I can't find change set.
So I'm going to cancel mine. So watch my screen. So here I type in lab 001, my name, so I find my stack. Okay, it's already highlighted because it's in blue. Okay, where it says actions, if you click on it, it's got these actions, right? And here we're going to choose create change set for current stack. Do you see that? So you click on that, and literally it's the same process. Now we're going to upload our template. G2. Do next. And what you should see, very important, is this name change set. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to do lab 001. I'm just going to add CS and then my name. You can put a description in, but it's not important at this stage. Everyone good? Is everyone up to this point? You guys? Whatever you guys, you good? You guys, you alright? Are we good at the back here? Good? Alright. So, where it says enable versioning, we want to enable this. Because what we're doing in this update is we're actually updating the S3 bucket to add a bucket policy to make it public read access. So actually what I'll do just before I apply this is I will show you so I'm never going to find that. So PG19 Sunil, this is my bucket, and if you notice it's not public at the moment here. So you guys don't need to go here, I'm just showing you. So permission, and there's no bucket policy here. So what I'm going to do with here is I've enabled versioning, and it's going to apply this bucket policy. So is everyone at this screen at the moment? Yeah? What about you guys at the back? You good? Up front, you guys caught up? So we're going to click next. And this bit looks quite familiar. The existing role, it's already chosen that role for us, so we don't need to select it. And then we can click next. I'm actually going to do one more extra thing. You guys don't have to do this. I'm just going to add the word Jira, and I'm going to put ops 23. The reason why, because you can add tags to your stack. So when you do these changes, most likely what's going to happen is you're going to have a ticket request come in, and you're going to want to audit that in some way, and tags will allow you to do this. So you don't have to do the tags bit. I was just going to show it. I was just showing you it.
Sorry, template. Zoom in on it.
So I'm going to do that. Are we good? So I'm going to click on this create change set. And now what it's done is it's showing me it hasn't actually provisioned anything. All it's done is it's created like a staging area to say this is what I'm going to do. And what it said is here, as you notice, it says it's going to add this bucket policy, and then it's going to modify the use case. That's the logical thing, the actual bucket. But it's not going to replace the bucket. So that's important, because when you update stacks, what could happen is sometimes it could your changes could destroy your resource that's active. And so what change sets lets you do is it gives you the opportunity to preview what you're going to do before you actually do it. So this looks like a very safe operation to me. It's not going to kill my S3 bucket. If I had uploaded a file, it wouldn't delete the file. Bucket's there. So I'm going to say execute. I'd encourage you all to do the same.
This is the second file in the one, yeah?
So update in progress. So some of you guys have already jumped ahead. So if I go to the S3 bucket, what you'll notice is if I click on here, is wherever it says, so this person's managed to do it, it's public. Mine's still doing it, so I'll just refresh it. There we go. Alright, so that's actually quite good. A lot of people got there. So I'm going to quickly show you what else it's done with my bucket. I click on my bucket, I go to permissions. If I go to bucket policy, it's going to let me click on it. You can see it's actually uploaded the policy.
So, quick question on change sets. Can you, do you have to publish the whole template plus your changes, or can you just publish just your changes and it will add to the?
So what change sets this? You upload your you're taking the same file and you've added some changes to it. You've added some stuff or whatever, and then you've uploaded it to and created this change set, right?
Right. Okay.
And it can sit there until someone comes and says, I want to approve this modification or not. So we just got executed it, but what actually happens is if you go, so if I click on this, and if you click on change sets, it will list it here. Right. So you could have a whole bunch of modifications you want to do, and it would show them here.
So if you just wanted to make the S3 bucket public, can you just publish that little script as a change set, or do you have to do everything including?
So that's actually a very good question. So what he's saying is that do you just want to add the snippet just to update the public policy, yes, or the whole file? So remember I said that the CloudFormation is a declarative language and it tells you what desired state is. So with infrastructure as code, you're representing that state as you go along. And so what you'll do is that modification would be in that template. So you'd add it, you will update the file, and that way you can revert back, because that's what the version control gives you. So originally when I was looking into this, I did the same mistake. I thought you just need to add the modification, because it's like a programmer's mentality, right? But that's not how it works. You just literally, it's more simple than that. You just add the modification or remove the modification. And but the key difference is though is that when you do these modifications, sometimes it removes the actual resource, and that's what change sets is really good at, is that it gives you the preview before you do it. So if you're in production and all of a sudden you've decided to make a change and your code isn't quite perfect for the change, it could destroy the resource and re-provision it, and whatever endpoints or whatever it is, you would end up losing. So this is why we had this deletion policy and all these things to put protections in. So I wasn't actually going to mention, but there are a number of ways to protect your things. So you can have stack policies, you can have termination blocks to stop people from fiddling with certain resources on a particular template. I didn't cover it here, but you can see it here. It says stack policy, because it's a bit more complicated to do it, and I haven't quite covered that bit myself.
So if we trying to add an extra change, like say, let's say there's going to be an extra change apart from the change now, so would you create another template for it? So
the question here is if you've got, say, two changes, right, and you want to do the first one and then the second one. So your answer is there, basically. One template, you commit that to version control, then you update it again. That's another change set. That's another file. So then you do them in order, and it should make the change.
So it's going to be two
change sets. If you want to do them separately, if you want to do them all in one go, then you just put them in the one change set.
Because not necessarily you're going to have all the resources at the same time, right?
Right.
Maybe in future, like today you will just require 5 switches.
Yeah.
In 10 years time, you need hundreds.
10 years time.
Yeah, one time.
Right.
So that's why. So you just need.
It sounds like a bank change there. But to answer your question, yes, you'd have 2 separate files in that respect. But you would have some sort of process in place to check those changes in, so you could always revert back to previous ways. So we've pretty much done with this lab. I think we should move on to the next one. What's time? Oh, we're running short on time now. So the next one is Lab 2, and this one we've got 2 templates, and what we're going to do is we're going to create 2 stacks, and we're going to update. We're going to create a security group with no rules, and I'm going to have another stack with security rules in it that updates the actual security group. So we go here, create stack. To do. Oh, actually, hold it. I forgot something. We don't do that. Cancel that. First we do is we actually edit the file. So we go to security groups, we go to goal 1, and we actually put in the name of our security group. The reason why we're doing that is because everyone's going to be creating a security group, and they're going to clash. So don't delete the app and the hyphen, because there's certain rules that you have to obey when you're creating security groups. And security groups, yeah, so just keep it all lowercase, and just put alphanumeric characters, nothing more. But with security groups, they can't start with SG, because it's internally represented that way. So that's why I've used the word app. I'm just going to put my name in my one. I'm going to save that. Can everyone see that? Are we good? So it's not a big change, it's just one small change. Okay. Turn that back to normal. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back here, we're going to create a stack. I'm going to browse, and I'm going to change folder to security groups. So this is the file that I just edited, and I'm just going to do next. And I'm just going to type in lab 002 and my name. I'm just going to do next. I'm going to choose meetup role. I'm just going to do next, Richie, and then do create. So what this will do is, if I go to EC2, so you guys are going to have to do this as well. So you go to services and open in a separate tab, EC2. Just hold the control or command key down and press on this EC2. So it opens in a separate tab. The reason being, you want to see your security group. So security groups is here on the corner on the left hand side. Can everyone see that? So if I click on that, oh wow, so everyone's already done it. So this is the security group, and there's going to be no rules in that whatsoever. Well, apart from the outbound one. So the most important thing here at this stage is you've got to find your security group, because we're going to copy the group ID. So you're going to have to copy it for your one. So if I do app Sunil, I need to copy this. Is everyone following so far? You guys following over there? Right, so now I've copied it, I'm actually going to go back to my file. And I'm going to go to the next lab, which is goal 2. And here, I'm going to edit a file and replace group ID. With my security group. So you guys got to do it with your one. Is everyone following so far? Sure. So has everyone edited the second file? Yeah? Alright, so while you edited the second one, can you just edit the third one as well? Because it's the same thing, just put the same group ID, there's 2 of them. While I quickly get some water.
Yes.
Alright, so I'm going to quickly add this to mine. Whoopsie daisy, what did I do? So has everyone edited the files? What about you guys at the back? Have you done the files? Good? Alright, so we're going to go back. And what we're actually going to do is we've done the first step. And now we're doing this. So we're going to go back to CloudFormation. And I'm going to create another stack. So I'm going to upload this file, lab002. Now, when you get to stack name, we have to do something very different this time. Because we've already got a stack named number 2. So we're going to call this one lab002 hyphen, I'm going to put it my name, Sunil, and then I'm going to do SG, that's Q, that's G, app hyphen rules. So can everyone do that? I can hear pizza's arrived.
So this is for the second file, right?
Yeah. So has everyone got to that stage? I'm going to do next then. No? Do I hear the no? Alright, so I'm going to do next. I'm going to choose the role again. We're literally just doing the same thing now. And then I'm doing next. And then I'm doing create. Now what this is doing is this is adding one rule to the security group. So this security group had no rules originally. This separate stack is now actually updating this one. You better do it. Alright, it's still in progress. So something's ballsed up on me. What have I done? Alright, so my file didn't update. Why is that?
Didn't save it in one of the files. You didn't save it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So my one's messed up, so now I have to delete that.
Maybe I should have. Oh yeah, because I did that one first. That was that one. I should have chosen that 690. I should have chosen 690.
So I'm just going to quickly upload that. Next. Next. The create. So while that's doing it, it's actually going to update and add rules to this. As you can see, it's now updated and added a rule. So when I do the next one, it will add another rule to this thing, basically. So the next one is just an import 443. Do we want to do the next lab, or do you want to do the, carry on with this lab? Do just the next one, because we don't need 443 because I'm not going to use it.
Quick question.
Yep.
Why did we do a new stack to update the previous?
So actually a colleague of mine told me this, and it was actually quite elegant. That's why I changed the original lab to this method, because if we went to do the actual original security group, then what actually happens is it replaces it. And if it's replacing it, then it's going to do and destroy the EC2 instance that it's connected with.
Change that when you want to.
Yeah, but if you do it this way, then you can keep adding and removing security rules, and it doesn't affect the rest of the infrastructure. So that was the important thing. So did everyone hear that?
Can I repeat it, please?
So the question was, why did we do it this way to make these changes? Why did we not just update the actual original stack? And the reason being is that a colleague of mine told me this, and it turned out to be a much more elegant solution. That's why I used it. With this way, if you update it using a separate stack, then it doesn't affect the original resource. And so any resource that's connected, that security group's connected to, would then have to be replaced and refreshed because they're security group. So if you do it this way, then it actually updates the security group without affecting the rest of the infrastructure. It doesn't replace it. So you remember in lab 2, in the lab 1, goal 2, where we did the change set, and it told you it does a modify and an add. But it said no replace, that was false. In some instances, when you do these changes, it can actually replace the original resource. And so this method is actually very elegant and a nice way of updating rules without affecting the rest of the infrastructure, which is why I've included it in like this. So if everyone's happy with, the next lab would have just added another rule. If everyone's happy with that, then let's just move on to the EC2 lab, because I think that's going to be useful to you guys. So the lab 3, we're actually going to have to edit the file again. So if everyone goes to this file, and at the bottom there's something called security groups, and then it says app and then your name. So whatever you called your security group, the name, that's what you put in there. So in my case, I'm going to put Sunil. So we're not using the ID anymore, we're using the name. Make sure I save it this time. Right, so has everyone done that? So I'm going to go back to CloudFormation. So the first one is the parameter. So you can change that if you want, but then you have to change the other one. There's actually two entries where it says your name. So that was a default parameter. So if you read the actual so this, where is it? Here. This is the parameters section. Let me increase it. And so you can put it, it's not going to harm, but make sure whatever you do, because your stack will fail with what I've put in here, it will purposely fail. Here, where it says resources, instance, well, I changed it now so you can't see it, but here it had your name, and you just need to put whatever you used for your security group. So if everyone does that, then just give me a heads up. And we good? All right, in that case, then I'm going to create the stack and you guys are going to do the same. So we do create stack, we browse and we go to the bootstrap folder. Then we do next. And then we do lab 003. And here we need to choose a lot more parameters. So we're going to choose instance type nano.
Name as well?
Yeah, thank you. Name. For key name, just choose the P19, so playgroup 19 meetup. And for the server name, just do PG19 hyphen and then your name. And leave the SSS location. And I'd ask if everyone just sticks with the instance type nano so the build doesn't go too much and I don't get into trouble. So has everyone set those settings? So the only thing we changed with this one, we chose meetup here in key, and we added our name and server name, and we left the rest as it is. Are we good at the back? Over there, you good? Right, so in that case I'm going to click next because it takes a while to provision. Choose the IMA role again, Meetup Labs, because you need that role. And then do next, and you can see you can have a quick preview. But I'm just going to click create. So once it provisions it, you want to check on outputs because it'll show a link. The public, remember I told you in outputs you can send parameters, and one of the parameters you're going to get is the public IP and the public DNS, and we want to visit that so we know that our instance is up.
Is it possible to briefly go through this YAML file just to explain?
Yeah, I was going to do that. So this one, right? So this one's a lot more complicated and a lot more complex. The first thing I'm going to mention is this file, and with CloudFormation in general, you don't write them from scratch. So I actually took this from Amazon, and I put the link up top where I took it from, and then I just stripped out stuff because it was massive. Because I wanted to limit it to what I could show you guys, because it was going to show too much. So what we'll do is we've got parameters here. We've got a type here called key pair, which gives you the list of the key pairs. Then we have instance type, and what we've done is we've created a list, a string list of allowed values. And the only one we chose nano, but you could have chosen micro or small. That was available. And this particular parameter server is pretty much same as the S3 bucket. Mappings is probably the one it's more unique here. So mappings allows you to do lookups and map stuff. And there's an intrinsic function further down. Where did I put it? I didn't put it anywhere. That uses it. Here it is, find in map. So it finds what instance type you've chosen, and it will look in the map. So I chose a nano, so then it chooses the architecture, then it works out which region you're in. And so we was in US East. This is Virginia. And because it's got this architecture value, and we chose nano, which is HMV 64, it maps it to this AMI. Does that make sense?
Why do we need to do this? I'm missing that.
So if you was to launch in another instance, then that AMIs are linked to regions, okay. And so that's why basically it's an EC2 thing. So you're going to have a different AMI for each region, and each EC2 is going to have its own AMI image.
So the micro has a different CPU architecture.
Yeah, but the actual image that they've saved on the AMI is a different number, and so this mapping helps you to choose the architecture and the instance, and then it maps it to the right AMI. So I didn't actually do this bit, but I understand it, and it was already done for me. I didn't include in this, but you could have added, bless you, you could have added an EBS drive and stuff, so that's something maybe you guys might want to do afterwards. It does have its own instance security group, which is also defined here in this template. Here. So it does create an so you can SSH to it, because I decided to keep things simple, we're not going to be SSHing to it.
And the user data.
So this is actually very important, this bit here now. So we're using user data to actually not just provision this, we're using CloudFormation to provision the instance, but we're using user data to configure the instance. And what this is doing is it's the same thing as you was to launch an EC2 instance. Under the Advanced tab, you can actually create what's called a bootstrap script, and that's basically what this is. And so what I'm doing here with this bootstrap script is that when it's starting up, this will only be ever executed when you start the instance. So it's only going to do it once. And this is a very important point, that one of the problems with bootstrap scripts with CloudFormation is that you can't maintain state. So you can't go back and add new packages. You're going to have to trash it and then relaunch it again, unless you've installed like a configuration management daemon. Then in which case you can. But there is another Cloud Init user script that allows you to do this, which is lets you install packages and then you can do updates through that. But that was going to be a further lab, which I didn't do. It's half done basically. So what we're doing here is we're just installing a web server and configuring it and then creating a web page. It's a PHP server. So I'm going to go back to, whoops, not that. I'm going to go back to this. So now my instance has been provisioned. I'm going to copy this public DNS, which was in outputs. So you will all have your own one of these. And if I put it up here, it actually shows a web page. So that's a bit of a Tron joke there. So we've now provisioned an EC2 instance with a web server. And that pretty much does the labs. So we're going to quickly go back to this. Where are we? What's up, guys?
What did you find? What did I get the URL?
So you go back to your stack on CloudFormation, and you highlight your stack, and then underneath there you should see something called outputs. That's the metadata for yours, and then you just copy that link and put it into a browser, and you'll see your instance data, and that's pretty much it. So one other thing I wanted to talk about was what's coming up next in CloudFormation. So at reInvent, they mentioned something called configuration drift, and this is going to be released sometime early 2018. They haven't actually released it, but it was mentioned in this, and they actually do a demo. I've put the link in the GitHub, and it's definitely worth watching. What is configuration drift and why is it important? Because CloudFormation doesn't stop you from making changes to your resources. The whole point of infrastructure as code that you should do it through scripting. But if for some reason you have to make these changes for production reasons, so something's gone wrong and you have to do an immediate change, you haven't got time to write a CloudFormation script, see it, test it, see if there's a change set, which is more than likely going to happen in production, you're going to have to make that change. And nothing, Amazon doesn't stop you from making that change, but what happens is now your CloudFormation and your actual environment is now no longer in sync, and this is what they call configuration drift. And they've now introduced, they're going to introduce tools to find out what the difference is, so you can then use your internal procedures to bring back the configuration, so you can re-provision so you can change it back and then re-provision it for your CloudFormation script, and then go back into your procedure of using infrastructure as code to make your changes. So that's what's coming up next. And the video actually shows a demo, but it hasn't been released yet. But it is an important feature, as I've put it in here. But And so that pretty much concludes the labs. So I'm just going to do a quick summary where we went through what is infrastructure as code and CloudFormation. We covered stack updates, doing direct updates, and we did change sets to preview our changes. And I mentioned about configuration drift, which is coming. And so it's not quite the end, because now it's time for pizza, basically.